Memories, sweet, sweet memories. I was his little queen. He was my king. Good times and good old days and sweet, sweet memories.
My father met Elvis in February of 1956 when he was working as a disc jockey at KRLD radio station in Dallas. Elvis had come to the station to promote some of his records, and they made an acquaintance and visited for a few minutes. Daddy reacquainted himself with Elvis a few months later here in Waco, Texas, in October of 1956 when Elvis played a concert at the Heart of Texas Coliseum. After the show, my dad was just so excited. He had seen Elvis's performance. He couldn't believe how great he was. And he went backstage to meet him. And he said, "Do you remember me? I'm the disc jockey that worked in Dallas, and you came up to promote your records." And lo and behold, Elvis had remembered him. And so they visited for a little while. My father was always very generous to strangers, and especially being impressed with Elvis. And he said, you know, to him just kind of off the cuff, "Come visit me sometime in my home. I'd love to have you. My wife would cook for you. We'd love to have you in our family. You know, just next time you're around, come to town. We'd like to show you around." And it was just a standing offer. And after that, in 1958, when Elvis became stationed at Killeen, Texas, just a few miles from Waco, when he was in the Army, he did just that. He would come visit our family on the weekends and just show up unexpectedly. He would never call first. He would just drop in. And it was always very exciting for us. He would bring his friends, his entourage, his girlfriend at the time, Anita Wood, and they would just pull up in several cars in front of our home and pile in the house. And my mother, who, you know, would be running around in her robe and her house shoes or whatever, would suddenly run, go back and put a dress on and start cooking. And it was always very exciting. It was a lot of fun. There was never a dull moment at that time. Also at that time, the word got out that Elvis Presley was staying at our home sometime, and so our phone number was unlisted after that so that people couldn't call us at all hours of the day asking if Elvis was there. And we would just look out the window at times, and there would be teenagers standing across the street just staring at our house, or a big mob of teenagers would come up to our house demanding to see Elvis when they thought he was there. So we felt like we were on stage a lot of the time, and we also felt that we were there to protect Elvis and keep the elements away from him that made him so nervous at times, unless he wanted to go out and sign autographs, and then we would be right at his side. So it was a very exciting time in his early career. When Elvis would come visit and listen to the new records that my father had bought for him, he would sometimes fix on one record, and he would play it over and over and over to almost to the point of just saying, "Please turn it off, we've had enough," you know. And one of the records that he liked at the time was called "Happy Birthday Baby." And he sat down at our piano one day, at my piano, rephrase that, and played that song. And he and Anita and my father sang it, and they just had a ball. Elvis loved that song, and he played it over and over with my dad and Anita providing harmonies, and he would change up the song a little bit to make it sound different, and he loved to do that. And Daddy was able to actually get him on tape singing that, which is great, and we got home movies of him playing our piano, sitting in our living room at our house in Lasker. And that was just great. I mean, there were people there having a good time. My brother and I were there as little children, and Elvis was just having a good time. He would, he loved to eat little sweet pickles, and he was eating some sweet pickles and at the same time kissing me on the cheek. And I'll just never forget that. It was really interesting, you know, the smell of the sweet pickles, Elvis, and these bright lights shining on my face as a little child. It was really funny. And so we got some of these things on tape, some of these really nice shots. We have pictures of Elvis, movies of Elvis sitting in the pink and black den that my father built for him. And in one of those shots, he's smoking a cigar. And that was another thing that my father always had for him in the room. Daddy had a little glass cigarette box that everybody used to in the 50s. I guess they kept them on their coffee tables and they would be full of cigarettes. Well, Daddy would put Elvis's cigars in there, and no one would smoke them until Elvis came. And he always enjoyed that special touch that we had there for him in our house. There was a story, too, about my folks were just sitting around the dinner table one afternoon, after lunch, I believe, and Mother had a pot of beans on the stove that she was preparing for dinner that night. And a knock comes on the back door, and they open it up, and there's Elvis and his mom and dad and Anita. And they were on their way from Fort Hood to Fort Worth to see a movie. And my folks were just shocked. You know, here they all were together. They just showed up on their doorstep. And they walked in, and they made them at home, you know, made them feel at home as usual. And Daddy asked if any of them were hungry. And Elvis was on kind of an unusual schedule. You know, he would sleep all day most of the time and be awake in the night. So I think he had just gotten up maybe an hour before that, and he was hungry. And so Daddy said, can we go to the store? We'll get you a steak. We'll get you whatever you want. You know, just tell us whatever you want, and we'll go get it. And he said, well, what's in that pot over there on the stove? And that was the beans that my mom was cooking. And she kind of sheepishly said, well, I'm cooking some beans for dinner. They're just some pinto beans. And he walked over to the stove, and he pulled up the lid of the pan, and he looked in there, and he goes, oh, that smells good. Can I have some of those? And she said, sure you can, you know. So she served up beans for the whole group of them, and they visited, they ate, and then a couple hours later they were back on the highway going to Fort Worth to their movie. So I thought that was a really interesting, sweet story. When Elvis was at Fort Hood and he started coming to our home more often, my dad decided to turn a little portico that we had on the side of our house into a den or a stereo room. And so that's what he did. And he decorated it in Elvis's favorite colors because he wanted it to be Elvis's little den and room, and, you know, whenever he would come visit. And so Daddy put black and white carpeting, kind of a speckledy looking carpet on the floor. And there were bookshelves in there along one wall, and they were painted in Elvis's favorite colors at the time, which were pink and black. And Daddy bought glasses and, you know, drink glasses and iced tea glasses and things that were in those colors. We had the whole thing decorated. Daddy even bought a stereo. It was a hi-fi stereo, what we used to call a hi-fi. And it was black lacquer, real shiny black, that matched the shelves in the room. And so he put that in there, and every time Elvis would come, Daddy would have the latest 45 singles out so that Elvis could sit and enjoy them. Elvis loved to listen to all the latest music. It inspired him. He loved to hear the new artists and just had a ball with it. He loved singing all the songs that were out, that were popular. He would do anything but his own songs. I think he was maybe a little, I don't know what the word would be, maybe sheepish about performing them outside of the stage setting. So he liked to perform other people's music when he was at our home.
Elvis loved this room. This was his room. My dad built it for him, and this is where he stayed. He played music in here. We partied in here. I can remember all the excitement. I've never experienced any excitement quite like the times when Elvis was coming here. His girlfriend at the time was Anita Wood, and I thought she was an angel. She looked just like I would think an angel would look. And Elvis, I can't say anything about him other than that he was some being on a far-off planet almost. And so great was his presence, his magic being here. It was just a wonderful experience. I didn't fully comprehend it, of course, but it was a very special experience just being here with Elvis and friends and family.
My father also bought a piano, which was actually my piano. It was bought for me. But after Elvis played it and Elvis touched it, it was really no longer my piano. After that, you know, I couldn't have the piano anymore. It became Elvis's piano. So I was a little mad about that. But I do have it now, so I guess all's fair. That ends fair. when Anita would come visit with Elvis, I was only 5 years old at the time, and she was so beautiful and so glamorous. She had the blonde hair. She would always wear the most beautiful, sexy clothes, and I was so enamored with her. And I would do anything to get Anita's attention. I liked Elvis, but Anita was really my idol. And I would do anything to get her attention, and I remember one day, I finally, after it seemed like hours to me of trying to persuade her to come outside and look at something, she finally came outside with me to our patio. And I really don't even remember now what I was showing her. Maybe it was a drawing on the sidewalk that I had made, or maybe I wanted her to teach me how to play hopscotch. I really don't recall. But I do recall that she did come outside and gave me her full attention while I talked to her and told her or showed her whatever it was I wanted to show her. And I was so impressed by that, and I always held Anita in just admiration because she was such a nice lady.
I was 2 years old when Elvis was coming to our house here, where we sit here in Waco, Texas. This is the room that was built for Elvis. I can remember Elvis calling me Reddy Kilowatt. It's strange that after 39 years I can still remember that, but there was such an excitement in the air, such an energy level when Elvis would come to the house. That remembrance has never left me. I can almost recreate it to this day. Elvis was fascinated with my fascination with light bulbs and light in general, and hence the name Reddy Kilowatt. He referred to me always as Reddy Kilowatt. It was never Dana, always Reddy Kilowatt.
When Elvis would visit our home, he would always come to the back door because he felt like he was one of the family. One Sunday afternoon, I can remember standing near a window at the back of our house, right behind our back door. My brother Dana and I had a little table there that we used to sit at and color pictures, and we would sit there for hours and draw and color and read. And I was sitting there one day, and I looked up out the window, and there came a huge black limousine or a Cadillac. I'm not sure exactly what it was, just a huge black car pulled up to the side of our house near our back door. And I ran screaming through the house. I just hopped up out of the chair and ran screaming, "Elvis is here, Elvis is here." And it was true. About 3 or 4 cars pulled up behind him, and a whole group of people came up and visited us for the rest of the day. But I will never forget that. And it was so funny because every Sunday afternoon after that, for several weeks, I would sit by that window and just look out the window to see if a black car pulled up. We never knew who Elvis was going to bring over to our home. Sometime it would be Army buddies with their girlfriends or their wives. It could be his entourage. It could be his family. It could be his cousins, just anyone. It was always a surprise. Daddy was able to get some of these people captured on film. Back then there was no narration to the movies. There was no sound. So years later, Daddy went back and narrated some of the films so that we do know now who some of the people were in the movies. In one shot, we've got Elvis visiting with Anita, and at that time he brought another couple with him, a man in an Army uniform and his wife or his girlfriend. And it was funny because Elvis felt self-conscious when Daddy would put the camera on him. Since he didn't have a script with lines that he'd learned to say, he was just being himself, and he would always feel a little self-conscious and maybe make a wisecrack or two, or, you know, get the camera off of me, sort of thing. So Daddy knew this, and to try to make Elvis more comfortable and to make his friends more comfortable, Daddy would put the camera on the other people in the room. And as a result, he actually got more footage of Elvis's friends than he did of Elvis. He didn't want the friends to feel left out, and he didn't want Elvis to feel uncomfortable. So being a true friend, he did what he thought was best. And even though he really wanted more footage of Elvis, he shot pictures of Elvis's friends. So we have a lot of that on our home movies too. And it was good that Daddy did have time to go back in later years and narrate some of this so that we would know a little bit more about what was going on. Gladys, Elvis's mother, when she would come visit with Elvis, would often go with my mother to the grocery store so that they could pick out Elvis's favorite foods. And one of his favorite foods was bacon. and he would eat a whole pound of bacon all by himself, but it couldn't be undercooked. It had to be burnt. And so that's the way Gladys showed my mother how to cook this bacon for Elvis, and that's the way Mother would serve it to him. And no one else would eat it. When Elvis's entourage was there, they had to have steaks and more exotic, expensive foods, but Elvis was very basic. He liked country cooking, cornbread, greens, beans, and bacon. He was happy. And of course, peanut butter and banana sandwiches. He loved those. Daddy called my Uncle Louie and asked him if he could bring Elvis over, if Louie could get the family together, and if they could have a barbecue and a picnic out on their big patio that they had. And Louie was just beside himself. He was so excited. He called up the family. They got it set up for about a week later. And I'll never forget that party. It was just wonderful. Everyone had such a good time. They had music playing out on the patio. I don't know how they did it. They must have brought their stereo outside. And Elvis danced with all my cousins. He signed autographs. He just had a wonderful day. They made hamburgers, which was another one of his favorite foods, which he really enjoyed. And he just became a part of our family. Everyone enjoyed being there with him. And even as a child, I can remember what a wonderful atmosphere it was and how happy everybody was and what a good time Elvis had. And my father was happy, you know, that he could do that for Elvis. So it was just a great time and a great party, and it's one of those things I'll never forget. Elvis, as you know, was very close to his mother Gladys, and when she passed away, that was very devastating for him. And my father sent a telegram consoling him after her death. And he also went to Graceland and spent about 6 weeks up there with Elvis at that time. When my grandmother passed away, my father's mother, Elvis had met her a few times at our house, and he always was very respectful towards her. And when she passed away, Elvis was devastated and very sad for my father because he had recently lost his mother. And he sent us a telegram to console us after her death, too. And I thought that was very sweet and very kind of Elvis to do that. Elvis liked Roy Orbison's music. And one time, Roy Orbison was coming very close to our town of Waco to perform in Temple, which is about 30 miles from here. And so my dad, knowing that Elvis thought Roy Orbison was really good, told my mom, we should go see this guy sing. It was in the very early days of Roy Orbison's career. So we loaded us all up and we went to Temple and we saw Roy Orbison's concert that he did there. And he was, of course, wonderful. And after the show, my father went up to him and introduced himself and told him he knew Elvis Presley. And so they talked for a little while. And Roy Orbison said, well, you know, Eddie, I was just getting ready to go eat. Why don't you and your family join us? And Roy, I think, was with his cousin and his father at the time. And so all of us went over to the Golden Dragon, I think was the name of it. It was a real famous Chinese restaurant there in Temple. And we went and ate together with Roy Orbison, and they talked about Elvis and show business and all the new music coming out. And that was a really nice memory, too. This is Elvis's star cap that he's wearing in photos that we have of him. He's also sitting in front of it in one of our home movies because the picture of him wearing the hat is right behind him. He bought these hats, I think he bought a few of them for his friends and entourage, and he bought these in Dallas, and this was Elvis's own hat that he gave to my father to keep. This is a copy of Elvis's personal appearance contract. It's dated October the 12th, 1956. This is a contract for a performance that Elvis did at Waco's Heart of Texas Coliseum, and this is where my father met Elvis. In the contract it says that Elvis was paid $5,000 for his appearance, and the tickets for the show cost $1.50 to $2. The contract is signed by Colonel Parker at the very bottom. There you go. These are home movies made at our house on Lasker in 1956 after Elvis's concert here in Waco. There's my mother, and there I am. There's Elvis, of course. and my father. Some of the guys in the pictures are wearing the star caps that Elvis bought in Dallas. There's one, and there's another one, and another one. That one's a little different. You can see Elvis's hair is longer. This was pre-Army days, so he was still performing with his long sideburns and long hair. My father handed me a ukulele and wanted me to act like Elvis, so that's what I'm trying to do here with the dance steps. There's Elvis shaking his feet to the music, trying to show me how to do the dance. My mother wanted to take a picture of Elvis, and he gave her a grin that she didn't like, so she panned down to his feet and took a picture of his shoes instead. And that's what you just saw. He always called my mother Mrs. Fadal. She was never Linnell to him. This footage was made in 1958 when Elvis was stationed at Fort Hood. These are Elvis's friends that he brought along with him for the day. These are the people that Daddy took more footage of than Elvis because he wanted to make everybody comfortable. Elvis is eating sweet pickles and little sandwiches that my mom had put out for him. There's Anita Wood with him. She looks gorgeous as always. There I am with Elvis giving me a big kiss with a mouthful of food and a pickle in one hand. My dad kept saying, "Go over there close to Elvis so you can be in the picture." And he had these bright lights shining on us that they used to use back then for home movies. Yeah, and Daddy said, "Wave at the camera," and Elvis says, "Yeah, wave at the camera," and so he waves. Elvis had cut his finger on maneuvers, I think, that day, so his finger's all bandaged up. And he's feeling a little self-conscious with the camera on him, I think. There's my brother Dana, who Elvis called Ready Kilowatt because Dana likes to play with light bulbs. Every time Elvis would come over, Dana would be walking around with a light bulb in his hand. And he always thought that was funny because Ready Kilowatt would walk around, I think, with a lit light bulb in his hand because he was Mr. Electricity. This is Elvis playing our piano and singing. This is where he's singing Happy Birthday Baby, I believe. And we've got that on audio tape. There's Elvis sitting in front of the photograph with the star hat on. And Anita. This is the pink and black den that Daddy had made for him. And Elvis is smoking one of his cigars. And he's talking about that photograph. And he signed that one for us, too. I don't think I need to narrate that. This is a cake that we had made to celebrate Elvis's birthday. It had Elvis on there with his guitar, and there was a hound dog down there. And there I am, waving at the camera again. This cake was so pretty, I'll never forget it. It had musical notes around the sides of it, and some of the lyrics to, or the names of some of Elvis's songs written on there. It was really neat. All right, this looks like a party celebrating an award that Elvis got from a local fan club. I think it was the Texas chapter of the Elvis fan club. Elvis is here with a lot of friends and a lot of the fan club members. One of the ladies is here, pictured here is the president of the fan club. And they're eating hamburgers. Now, there's Elvis's hamburger, close up. He liked hamburgers. And there's the president of the fan club right there. There's Lamar Fike, who worked for Elvis. And Elvis has received an award this night, and he holds it up in a little while and shows it off. I think he's pretty proud of it. There it is. There you go. I think everyone was getting up and making little speeches about the night or about Elvis or something. And my dad's in here somewhere, but it's so dark it's hard to see everybody. And Elvis is cutting a cake. He gives everybody a piece of cake, passing it around. He's wearing a pretty fancy shirt there and skinny tie, very fashionable. Peter must not be in there. I don't know a lot about this one, but we can play it and when I think of something. Elvis is dancing. Here's Elvis dancing with the president of his fan club and giving her a big kiss. If you'll notice, she looks at the camera and they take a picture of them together. Elvis liked to make everybody happy. He was a really nice guy, and he liked to pose with his fans for the pictures, and they liked it too. I'm sure they're still talking about it. They all get a kiss and a photograph. See, they're posing there. Do you have on white shoes? Yeah. Now, these films were made when my father visited Graceland. He stayed for about 6 weeks, and this was after Gladys had passed away. This is Dee Stanley, Dee Presley.
You can see that's Vernon's wife.
That's Vernon's wife, Dee. Some of these people are Elvis's relatives. It was in the wintertime, and so there, you can see people are wearing coats and the trees are bare. And this was looking out of the driveway, I think, there at Graceland. There's Dee again, and she's posing, kind of modeling for the camera. And here's Elvis. He had just gotten up, and I believe he was in a bit of a mood. He wasn't real happy, but he wanted to take a drive and look at the progress on this piece of land that he had donated for a youth recreation center. So he was telling everybody about it, and they drove probably for about an hour. And they get to the place where this recreation center is supposed to be, and the sign's fallen over. And Elvis just thought that was hysterically funny, that he had built this place up, you know, here was going to be this youth center, and he had given the money for it, and they get there and the sign's not even standing. And he just thought that was hysterical. So he and his guys got out there and they tried to lift it and they couldn't. It fell back down, and that was even funnier. And then some other guys came along and helped him, and I don't know if they ever got it to stand that day or not, but that really brightened his mood. He thought that was pretty funny. And here they are in the car going back, and there's Anita. She's talking to everybody in the back seat, with the camera rolling. And Elvis has got one of his cigars again. And there's my dad. They were playing around with the camera that day. Everybody would walk out of the house and wave so that they could be on the film. There's my dad again. He said they were all just acting goofy for the camera. I believe that's David Stanley riding the tricycle there. This fellow worked for Elvis. I forget who he is, but if you can see, he's got a big EP. There's my dad again. Gonna hop into the convertible there. And there's Elvis coming out of the house. Here's some of Elvis's karate films. He took karate for several years and really enjoyed it. He got very good at it too. These are just different people sparring, and some Elvis is in some of this. It's a little dark, so it's hard to tell which one he is.
My cheek, imagine that I was the envy of every girl in Waco town. sweet, sweet memories. I was his little queen. He was my king. Good times and good old days and sweet, sweet memories. Dana was the cutest boy. He would hug him a lot. Light bulbs were his favorite toys, so he called him Reddy Kilowatt. Memories, sweet, sweet memories. I was his little queen, and he was my king. Good times and good old days and sweet, sweet memories.